Hey, folks, sorry about that. I know there was no sound. We were getting the picture taken care of. Everything's right where it should be. I had us muted on purpose so we could talk. Um, we have some things we're going to be talking about tonight, folks. Uh,
Hmm.
we're going to be talking about the death of a streamer, a YouTuber in the community, a suicide. And first, we'll start with some introductions. So first, we have uh, Matthew Bergendahl. Matt, you're the
Hello.
STOP program director.
Yes.
So the Overwatch program for Stack Up. So real quick, like a 30-second, what is the Overwatch program?
Thank you. The Overwatch program is a 24/7 man peer-to-peer support program where we try to provide intervention on behalf of veterans and civilians alike. Basically, they come in through our Discord channel, and we try to provide a service that can help them get back on the right track.
Right on. And then we have Dr. April Foreman from the AAS. So,
Yeah.
April, what is the American Association of Suicidology?
Well, I want to give a shout out to anybody who's out there who has lived experience, who's had lost someone to suicide, or who has survived a suicide attempt or lives with suicidal feelings. The American Association of Suicidology is a professional organization. It's for people like me who are experts about the topic of suicide, scientists, clinicians, people who work in crisis lines, and also people who have lost someone or have lived experience, lived expertise. And so I'm on the executive board. I'm a suicidologist. I also know you all because I work at the Veterans Crisis Line in technology and innovation. And that's an area that I'm really passionate about, like using technology, using social media to help people live. And we're here today because someone didn't live, and to
Hmm.
really talk about that as a community.
So before we get into that, I do want to take a moment just to get some more eyes on this and put this out in our chat. You folks watch it, if you would, please go ahead, head on over, give that a retweet. Let's get as many
Hmm.
people in here as possible. If you got your favorite content creator, ask them to share it. But let's see if
Yes.
we can get as many people, as many viewers in here as possible to learn about this subject because I think it's a subject we don't talk about a lot. And so let's start at the beginning here. April, or first for everybody out there too, let me introduce myself. I'm
Hmm.
Brian Snyder, Sam Sketch. I am the director of communications for StackUp.org. So if you've read or seen anything about StackUp, it probably came through me. I'm just going to sort of facilitate a dialogue here, is what I'm hoping. And I want to start with the way this came about. Was April? You had been
Hmm.
watching this story
Hmm.
unfold, and
Hmm.
I really felt you had asked, "What can I do to help?" And it wasn't like, "Oh, what can we do to help?" It was, "What can I do to help?" It was bothering
Hmm.
you. I could tell just during we
Yeah.
were having a business conversation, and I could
Yeah.
tell like, "Wow, this is really bothering you." How did this come? Now you're not a gamer, you're not a streamer. How did this get into your sphere of influence even?
So I have to tell you, I really care deeply about men's mental health. I mean, I work at the Veterans Crisis Line, and I work with soldiers. I know you all because of that, and I happen to know that suicide is the 10th leading cause of death. I happen to know that it is a leading public health problem for men, and I happen to know that it's the second or third main reason that a lot of the, especially male gamers and
Hmm.
streamers on Twitch might die. I
Hmm.
know this is their leading public health issue, and I well, I am a table topper. I don't do as much of this kind of gaming, but I am a table topper, and I'm sort of gamer adjacent, and I totally know how important tribe is to men and how important these communities are. And so I also know that if someone like Etika, who by the way, my son's best friend Gabe, like watched him every day, like I know that folks who are social media influencers are important. They're close and connected to people, and I happen to know he's got hundreds of thousands of people in his community. So when somebody dies by suicide and you're close and connected to them, your risk goes up. So
Hmm.
my brain, I can just do the math. I know that that's hundreds of thousands of people potentially whose risk for suicide went up a little bit. And some of those people and we don't know for sure who, their risk was already high. And this could increase for them their risk of attempting or dying. And I could just do the math. And we were having a business meeting just about doing other projects together. And my heart is just anguished. I think you captured that correctly, because this is a community that isn't, they're not going to go watch a Hallmark commercial about how to call for help. Like, that's just not, I mean, some of them might, but like, I was like, well, how do we even, like, who will listen? What questions do they have? So I'm like, not here to fish everybody out and save them, but what questions do they have? And is there any way that I could help the community help itself?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we spun out of that, and I think the hard time is where do we start? Does it start with the content creators? Does it start with the consumers of the content? Where does it start so that this becomes a more serious issue? Our conversation spun off where I gave you a little bit of an insider look into the life of a streamer or a YouTuber, where you can't stop. Success on YouTube or Twitch comes from consistency. It comes from streaming 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. Yes. That in itself can't be healthy, right?
No, and what many of your viewers won't know about me, and it's, unless you're a suicidologist, you wouldn't know this. We did, myself and a group of my 3 best friends, Tony, Bart, and Chris, if you're watching, hey, like, we did a live show for years. It was only 1 hour, one night a week, and that was a lot of work, and we took a summer and winter break. That's a lot of production time. I try to imagine streaming 8, 10, 12, 14 hours a day. You're telling me that this could go, and doing it every day. Wow.
It's interesting. I'm going to kind of jump in there and bring in my perspective about streaming. I do the Psi streams with my partner, Hannah, and we are only doing it twice a month. And sometimes it just seems like an overwhelming amount of back work that you have to do and produce in order to have a usable platform and topic and being able to discuss about it. You just can't do it by the seat of your pants. You actually have to prepare. And because we're talking about psychoeducational things, we have to also take in mind, like, well, if we present it at this angle, how would the viewers watch it or take it in and digest it? Are we being too clinical? Are we being, whatnot? So we have to analyze our work before we even present it. And that could be exhausting. I'm not going to lie. When we're doing a 2-hour stream, and by the end of that stream, I am exhausted. And I see these folks who are doing 12-hour streams. I've even heard of people doing 24-hour streams. I'm like, how do you do it? How do you do it?
I was watching, as you guys were telling me that, I was going and watching him, so watching the video, and I'm like, boy, it must be hard to get regular rest. It must be hard to have like a, sort of a life that's not online. I get why many like content creators on Twitch or on YouTube, like, that they really have to balance life in these very weird ways. And then I was like, well, and I don't know what Etika's situation was, but when do you go to the doctor? Like, if you needed to go to therapy, if you weren't like good that day, then like, what happens to your income? Because I don't know. Do you have health insurance? Like what's your backup if things go wrong? And so we were watching Etika, like, he nuked his YouTube channel through these, and I don't know if they were manic, but they were certainly these very dysregulated episodes where he's uploading, what was it, hentai, and then getting his channel shut down, and then moving it other places, and doing all this stuff, and on that sort of trajectory towards a suicide attempt or death, your life starts to wobble, and it's like a sine wave. It starts to wobble more and faster, and you just sort of watched him. Like, I would watch timestamp content, and he wobbled more and harder and faster, right? It got more and more erratic until in April. And I was like, well, if you're a content creator, your income for the months, and it might take months to get help, to get meds, to get it sorted where you won't feel and be yourself, and yourself is what you're selling.
Yep.
What do you do? Like, I don't, like, what would you do for income? Like, how would that even work? And no, anyway, you tell me. These are my thoughts. I don't know what the community's saying.
Well, I do know, and Sketch, please jump in. I've watched ever since I became more of a presence on Twitch and following people who stream because I'm trying to understand, how it works and how it doesn't work for them. I see this built up of fear on some of these influencers and these streamers when they try to take a small vacation. They want to be gone for like 4 or 5 days, but they say, "Hey, I'm going to be on vacation, but I'm going to keep posting stuff for you, so I don't lose you." And they're almost concerned that that if they are gone completely, they'll lose viewers, they'll lose subscribers, and that's very much a real thing. It's like I would try to put myself in the mindset of these folks, and it's like I'm trying to help myself, but at the same time, I'm hurting my income. Is that it's like a double-edged sword,
right? Which will make your stress worse.
Mm-hmm.
And in all fairness, there are many. I mean, I know that Twitch is everywhere, but there are many Americans who face this. Which is if I go to the doctor, that's money I don't have for other things. That I may not have that much time off, and for mental health stuff, especially that might involve feeling suicidal, you might need to be in the hospital for a couple of days. You might legit need days for your medication to take effect and to regulate. And would the best thing, I'm trying to imagine, like he had a welfare check in April, which I watched someone had the recordings you can still get on the internet of how that welfare check went with the NYPD, which I don't know the situation. And I want all police officers to come home safe. I have very good friends who are police officers who do welfare checks.
Yep.
And also the person that often sends them and takes care of people. So I understand sort of both sides of that. But I'm watching this welfare check. Police are coming in with like bulletproof shields and they're like cuffing him and taking him to the hospital for an involuntary hold. And then like a day or two later, he's back on. Nah, I'm cool. And I'm like, oh, well, if I were the person helping him get well, I would be like, dude, no. Like,
what are you doing?
Like this is very serious. This is this is a fatal health condition that you have. Like, oh, my heart. Like, I find myself, and that's only because I'm a mom, right? And my son is not quite as old as Etika, but he's 17. And I think, oh, if that were my son trying to make his rent, I would have been horrified and scared for him. And I keep thinking, and I heard, and it's Sketch. I know you've got some content to read, and I've got some content to read. People were making memes, making fun of him in this really public way. They were watching him be sick for entertainment. I don't have words for how heartless that is, I guess. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I was just, so on that note, especially that particular thing, where does when you become a content creator, when you put yourself out on Twitch like that and make a brand out of yourself, for instance, if I were to go and become a streamer and I stopped being Brian and became Sketch, what happens to your brain there? Because there's a character getting created, right? It's not. But it's you're blurring reality and fiction. Interestingly enough, pre-show, Matt, you had brought up Trailer Park Boys. They're in the long lines of performers like the Lone Ranger and things like that who do not perform in public out of character. They only perform in those characters. But even that is a separate. They turn those cameras off. They are not on the stage. They're done. They go back to being who they are. But here, I think even more so when you're talking about bringing your viewers into your life and becoming this brand, I think there's a danger of losing yourself and not even knowing, do I need help? Am I taking care of myself? Because it's the character that's stressed. You're not stressed. It's this character you've built.
Yeah, and I'm looking here at the chat at what Nightmare, he said it's very much like a physical store that I'm guessing like you operating and you run the store yourself. There's nobody else there to help you. You are the sole responsibility for the success of your operation. And then Renegade here saying that you're dealing with isolation of being a full-time content creator, and that's just another avenue to look at when it comes to, how are these folks working with their mental health? Are they even giving it enough time and consideration, or realizing the importance of it? Every once in a while, I'll see a streamer saying, "Hey, folks, I need to take a mental health day. I'm not feeling really good. I'm kind of struggling right now." And it's reassuring to see that there are people out there who are going to do that. A little bit of self-care, a little bit of disclosure to their followers, because I think that's healthy. I think it's because it's like kind of what Sketch said. You make this brand, and if it's a different, almost a different persona of who you really are, you're saying, hey, I'm still a real person. I'm a human. I might act this way or a certain way on my streams or on my posts and stuff like that. But reality, there still is a human behind here. And I still have needs, and they still have to be met if I want to continue to be successful. And seeing what Etika was doing, I was watching one of, I think it was his last stream that he did before he did kill himself. He was talking about how he thought his persona, his presence on his stream would never allow him to feel this depression, these issues, and he was too big for him. And he realized that he allowed himself to get sucked into this person that he created online. And I can almost see the weight and the pressure in his face when he was talking about it, when he was saying how he screwed up. He felt that at the end, because he had him so tightly, wrapped together, he could not break apart from it. And when Sketch was telling me about the, how people react when they're online versus in real life, that was the first thing that came to mind.
That's just heartbreaking.
Yes. Yep.
That's like, I was reading a lot of people whose hearts were broken watching it happen sort of in real time as it was going on. And that's just heartbreaking for any human being. Like, he brought so much joy to people, and clearly engaged hundreds of thousands of people. He didn't deserve to feel like that, to suffer inside like that. That's horrible.
And Nightmare brings up a really good point that I was going to bring up too. People it was almost seemed like there was two types of presence in his chats. The ones who were cheering him on as far as enjoying watching this breakdown almost, and others saying, dude, go get help, go get help. And I think, and I really try to see the world as being a very positive place and not inherently like this evil source. And I would like to think that the people who were egging him on, so to speak, were assuming that he was just acting out in his persona and this way he acts in his streams, and they weren't really picking up on the clues. I don't know. April, you saw some of these videos. What were your thoughts?
So, so I'm watching them, and I have to watch them with sort of several hats. And I'm watching them as a clinician, and I'm watching somebody get sick, and I'm watching them get sicker and sicker. And if this were my patient, I would be red flags. Let's change your meds. Let's change something in your life. Let's get your friends involved. Let's come up with a safety plan. Let's talk about, it would have been this is not working. Right. And then I was reading at the same time I'm watching what to my eyes is really clearly people don't fake. Now, you guys told me that on Twitch and, people are faking cancer and stuff like that. And so maybe there are a few people who will, but and in mental health, we call that malingering. But malingering kind of looks a little different. I'm watching somebody be really sick, and everyone's like, this is a publicity stunt for attention. And I'm like, well, if this were a publicity stunt, wouldn't his numbers have gotten better? He wouldn't just kill his chance? Like, a publicity stunt is to do better with your job, and things were getting worse. And I'm like, why didn't people put that together? I don't know.
Well, let's start. You had mentioned previously, and I kind of jumped over it, but we can go back to that now. You
Sure.
had mentioned about some of the comments, April, that people
Oh
have,
yeah.
and I said I'd pulled a couple apart. So let's get into a few of those, and let's
Sure.
start with that one, that subject right there. So again, I'm not going to give names, and these are just comments that I pulled off of various articles or videos or whatever regarding the subject. So quote one I have here: anyone that makes a live video with the police that makes a living on social media is doing it to garner viewers.
Mm-hmm.
Or is really ill
Mm-hmm.
and trying to keep viewers.
Why is it so easy to go to the, oh, it's just a cry for attention, though?
Because that's the
Let
easy
me,
way
let me
out.
let me tell you what, and I'm going to be really, really clear with your community as a clinician. Somebody who thinks, I don't want to kill myself, but I'm going to do this to get viewers, is not what we would call neurotypical, and usually has some characteristics of what's called a cluster B personality disorder, and there are a few. Often cries for attention that don't go very well, and the result in police welfare checks are related to something called borderline personality disorder. So
Mm-hmm.
people do things that are very pathological bids for attention. But here's the thing. That is the disorder that has the highest mortality rate, and 3 to 10% of people die by suicide. So even if in that moment someone's saying, I'm just trying to get attention, that is a big red flag
Mm-hmm.
for suicide risk. So it does not matter. When someone's doing that, they're usually not well, because well people are like, dude, no. Like there's a line and you go, no, I can't do that. No, I
Mm-hmm.
would not call. Like, well people don't do that, not even for social media. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Sure. Yeah, that's and I think it's a way that most people don't look at it. They see. I think it's so easy to be dismissive, to see everything as an act, to be distrustful, and even
Mm-hmm.
and I think nobody's. I'll be honest. I've never made that leap that you just put out there, April. That hey, even if this is fake, even if this is dishonest,
Mm-hmm.
normal people don't do. I don't want to say normal people, but healthy. That's the word. Healthy
Healthy,
people.
Yeah.
healthy people don't do that, because they'll be like, whoa, like
Yep.
that's the line that healthy people sort of have.
Right.
And it's like, that's one of those things I'm usually trying to explain to someone around borderline personality disorder, because as a therapist, you'll get these bids for attention,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll sort of react, and then they'll be fine. And then even therapists will make that mistake, Sketch, and they'll be like, oh, they're manipulating me. And I'm like, well, no, because if they were manipulating you, it would work. Like they would get what they want, but what they get is rejected. They get people to blow them off. They get people to disbelieve them. It's very ineffective behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, that's great. I just remember during my practice, just getting these folks who, if they were to voice their issues on social media, like some of these streamers, some of these content creators, they would be almost completely rejected. It would be almost like the boy crying wolf, and it was just like. It doesn't work that way, and maybe and one thing that we can do is just more education, that with publications or what have you. That's a completely different topic. But when I'm taking a look at when I'm running my own program, the STOP program, we will get people who come in there who are in critical need, and it doesn't matter where they're coming from. It doesn't matter if we really think that maybe it's really not as critical as they're saying. I always say no. You take every single person who ever says that they are having suicidal thoughts as a serious thing, because that you don't question it. You just act on what they're telling you, and don't go down that rabbit hole of trying to say that, oh, they've done this before. This is just the same old thing. No, and it kind of going hand in hand on what you're saying, April.
Exactly.
It has to be taken seriously. It cannot be blown off.
So
If you are calling in crisis for something that doesn't look like a crisis, that's usually a big red flag of you've got some dysfunctional coping behaviors. And if you must call in crisis to solve problems on the regular, even if people worry that you're not being honest, It's a thing that people who are healthy and doing well, they just won't do. And so you may help them with that crisis, because number one, people who are doing that have possibly a disorder that puts them at 3 to 10% risk of dying.
Yeah.
And also recognize that's something very disordered is going on. Now that you may need to have really good boundaries. I'm a clinician who treats folks at high risk with borderline personality disorder. I advocate for that so hard. It's very misunderstood. This is no shade at all. This is my favorite disorder to help people with. But you might get them to very skilled help, and Etika might have been very ill and needed very skilled help. Scatch, you were saying, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, so now that we've established that even, quote, a fake cry for help is still a problem, how can you help? If you yourself or a personality or you're watching a stream and you see this kind of behavior, even if you don't believe the behavior, even if you don't, they're just doing this to put on a drama show, what's the best way to go about? What can you do? What can you say?
I have two recommendations that I think a layperson can use that I think are really effective. So first of all, if that's going on, let me tell you what, if I learned one thing with do-it-yourself home maintenance, you should know when to do it yourself, when to call a professional. So that is the kind of behavior that takes a professional, and honestly, usually a better than average professional. You can hear someone coming in, that's my lovely husband, getting home from work, bringing in some groceries. So don't mind that in the background. But the two things that you can do, number one, some people will find if there is a cry for help, a bid for help, that then once you go to help them, it looks kind of fake or dishonest. And they may even get angry at you. They're like, no, I was telling you I was cutting myself. I didn't want you to call help for me. I wanted you to, do whatever crazy thing. And you say, if I loved you, how could I possibly ignore what's going on right now?
Yes.
And that's very powerful. That is a line from the great Dr. Marsha Linehan. This is an area she herself experienced borderline personality disorder. She developed and did the research for the gold standard, clinical trial-based therapy for that, dialectical behavior therapy. And that is the line that she used. And it is brilliant, and anyone can use it. If I loved you, how could I possibly ignore what you're saying, what you're doing, and list it out? And then take action. And if it's immediate, take action immediately. And the second thing is, if you're not sure what to do, if you're very upset and it's very worrisome, Etika's friends really tried this, and there are no guarantees, but you can call the lifeline yourself and say, I am watching this happen. What is the right thing to do? And 24/7, you don't have to be the one in crisis. You can get coaching from an expert who can look at that situation with you and help you figure out what to do. Those are the two things.
You got anything you would like to add, Matt?
I just really like to. I'm going to look more at the presence of the content creators and streamers. I think this has been discussed about a month ago, because a lot of these streamers were talking about on Twitter how they'll have their regulars, and some of those regulars will come in there and they would talk about their depression. They'll talk about, maybe even thinking about suicide. And the streamers kind of had this movement where they're saying, I'm not here to help you. I'm not here to listen to your issues. Don't come on my stream and talk about this stuff and expect me to take that burden on my shoulders. That's not fair. Now, I try to be sympathetic and try to see it from their perspective. But at the end of the day, we're talking about human lives. And I would say the best way for streamers who are watching this right now or later on for the VOD, anybody, if you are working with the general population, and if your job and your money making involves a community of people, it is your responsibility to at least have the minimum of sources like the 1-800, the national hotline, things of that nature. They're not expecting you to sit down and play counselor with them. They feel comfortable with you and know you well enough where they feel that they can disclose this information and saying, I need help. So they're not necessarily expecting you to do that. They just want to say, okay, I need help, and this person, give them that information, let them get the help that they need, then and continue with your stream if that's what works. And also, like here in Stack Up, all of our streamers know about the stop program. And so we've had plenty of times where somebody is in the stream, they get some really serious chats going on, and so all of our streamers in Stack Up know that, hey, you're expressing these issues in the general chat here. Let's get you plugged into a resource right now. Our folks are a little bit better, or are much better equipped to handle this because they know of that resource. We just need to get those ideas out to the general streaming community, in my opinion.
I agree. Like, if all the public understood that while suicidal feelings may come and go, a real suicidal crisis is not forever. It's a 30-minute to 1 hour event. That the vast majority of people who live through it, it passes, and they go on to live their lives, like 90% of the time. Like, this is one of those deals where it really is temporary for the vast majority of people. And crisis lines work very well. They're not 100%, and not everyone's going to have the experience that they want to have, but they work pretty well. And that's like bare minimum first aid. You wouldn't walk past somebody having chest pains and not do something. And it's so easy to post that information in your community as a favor, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm looking here at the chat right now. Nightmare said we need less sympathy and more empathy. It kind of brings up an idea of that. One of my co-producer Hannah, she has been trying to push the envelope and advocating and breaking down the stigmas of mental health, and she kind of came up to this thought that saying, a lot of folks talk a good talk, but they don't walk the walk, if that makes sense. And when it comes to mental health, you are going to see right away if somebody is going to walk the walk when it comes to really helping people out. I mean, I see it all the time within the streaming community of people saying, hey, if you need help, reach out, and this and this and this, and then 24 hours later, they're blasting people for talking about their problems. It doesn't work that way. It really shouldn't work that way if that's what's going on. Yeah. And you got to be able to back it up.
And I can sort of sympathize with these streamers. Like, they're like, I thought I was running a great gaming, and I built a community, and they didn't realize that part of what goes with the community is that there will always be, because suicidality is very common. 8 to 9 million Americans are at high risk every year. It's a 10th leading cause of death. They don't realize if you get a big enough community, this is just going to be something that's like other things. That it's just going to be a part of your community. And you just sort of build that in. And it's probably quite a mind adjustment to realize that you're responsible. If you are the center of a community, you're responsible for the tone of that community. I got asked by Rolling Stone, and I got asked by another interview today. They said, well, do social media communities make people mentally ill? And I said, well, what we know, and there's just very, very, very little research, but what we know is if you look at different communities, like, say, in Reddit, there are some that the more that you participate, the more you post, the healthier you get. And there are some that the longer you participate, the more you post, the more involved you are, the less healthy you get. And some are kind of neutral. There's something about the community. And if you're a content creator, the advice is, learn how to foster a well community, especially if you want to keep your viewers, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's just the ethical way to do it. I mean, that's just I guess, April, you and I have had plenty of ethics training. It kind of goes hand in hand with the education, the license. And so to me, it was just natural to have that, that desire to help people and not worry about, any of that stuff. I think, hell, I almost wish you can have an ethics training for streamers. That would be awesome.
Totally. I mean, that's it's a profession, right? So you would think what we would talk about is, what does it mean to be at the center of a network? But go for it, Sketch.
Yeah, sorry, Sketch.
I just wanted to, because again, I think we kind of handled that one, and I want to touch on another comment here, because I think this is a prevailing attitude online. We're getting better about it, but 10 years ago, this was the mantra. And I just would love to hear your opinion, your thoughts on this. So, again, another comment here. Anyone working online should know the brutality and backlash of people on the internet and should have thick skin.
So remember, I'm a therapist who loves helping people with borderline personality disorder. So these are the patients who, while they're in the less functional stages, might, I love you 1 minute, screaming I hate you, and slamming the door and walking out of the office on you is a normal thing. A lot of incredible anger and then incredible idealization, and that's like a part of my daily clinical experience. And we're going to start there. We'll move on to the internet. And I think one of the important mental health skills that everyone needs is to not have a self-image or a mood that is dependent on the regard of others. Mm-hmm. And I get that. And when I am my most well, I can sustain that. And one of the principles of doing that therapy is incredible vigilance to keep that, because it's actually not easy to do. And in order to do that, all the therapists who do just that kind of therapy have what's called a consultation group, where the goal is to not help you treat your patient. The goal is to treat you so that you can be well enough. I can't imagine being a content creator where people are reacting to me in all these ways, right? And about me in all these ways, and not having a group of the world's best trained therapists backing me up to help me keep centered. Mm-hmm. It would be incredibly hard to do. Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. And I say it all the time. These streamers, these content creators are posting screenshots of some of the really brutal comments that they have to wade through, and the trolls that come out to their streams and say horrible things about them or to their community. And I think we can look at this in many different perspectives. I don't agree with that, having a thicker skin. I think that's important, having a thick skin, but when it comes to how we react to it, I think we need to have, it's just like bullying in the school. We have to have no tolerance to it. And some of these streamers are starting to do that. They were initially like, oh, I'm worried that it might affect my community. But some of these streamers that I'm seeing them, they have no tolerance. They say, this is a community of acceptance where we appreciate everybody. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. So long as you are a good person, you have a community here. But the moment you step out of line and you started making derogatory terms or whatever you're doing, we are going to cast you out. And if I think it's kind of, I don't want to get off tangent here, but all these thoughts are coming to mind right now about how a society or community can either accept this or reject it. We can still have that and do that in streaming or in content creating. It is up to the community to accept this harassment and saying, oh, it just comes with the territory if you're going to stream, or saying, no, this is crap. We need to get rid of it because it's just affecting us in a very harsh way.
And if remember, you're influencing your community. So one of the things that we found is not all communities are equally helpful or equally ill. There's mm-hmm. something about what you foster or what you cultivate in your network mm-hmm. that seems to, and it's not just about that one person and your one emotions, but it either increases the health or it increases the risk for your whole network. It's worth doing because it turns out, like, social media is social and suicide is socially contagious. There's something, mm-hmm. we're all connected and we can transmit things. It would be the same as like saying, nobody cover your mouth when you cough and sneeze. Just wipe it on your hands and smear it on everyone else because you've got an immune system, right? And you've just got to have a great immune system or you just get sick and F you. No, we don't. We say, that is too funny.
Sorry.
Like that, but actually, that's like a really good thing. So here, are you open with the community
about?
I've
already talked about it. Go for it. Yeah.
So because of your transplant, because of your medication, you have a compromised immune system. So you would never want me to come over to your house sick. You would never want. I should always, cough into my sleeve, wash my hands, be really careful. Because it's not a matter of you're just not tough enough. Your immune system just isn't where it needs to be. And I've had friends who can't be vaccinated because of autoimmune disorders. So you know what? I go get a vaccination and I watch how I behave because I care about everyone's health. And there's a piece of mental health that's actually exactly like that. And when we were talking about why I wanted to do this stream, it was just simply you people who game and stream, and you young men especially, I'm not saying the young women attempt more. Suicide's the number one cause of death for girls 10 to 14. But this is a major health issue, so we should treat you just like we would have we should use all of our good preventative non-transmission things. And one of them is healthy, pro-social behaviors in our networks.
You nailed it. Perfect.
You nailed it. We got it. I'm gonna use this in my next interview. Are you kidding? It's brilliant.
So, and here's something I want to bring up, and I think this is part misconception, but yet here we are talking about this right now, and it's a comment that says, "Sad that the people who need the help only get attention after they're dead."
Yeah, you're effing right about that. Pardon me, I got really a little fired up.
And
can I talk about that? Because that is a very I'm not gonna sugarcoat this because you are saying the right thing. We got a bunch of attention while he was alive. So first of all, for Etika, he did get a lot of attention. A lot of people tried to get him to help. That is why there was a welfare check and there was an involuntary hospitalization. So people were trying in Etika's case, and it's very sad how it went down. But for a lot of people, especially in the United States and all over the world, they have to get very, very sick, and they have to sometimes do very loud, extreme things to get heard that they're suffering and to get their suffering taken seriously. That is wrong. It is prejudice and discrimination. It is treating emotional pain, which leads to the 10th leading cause of death. It's not very rare. It's it's a major reason people die. We treated it as if they're just whining, or it's not that serious. We certainly don't fund treatment. You certainly don't have access to treatment. We don't research suicide like your pain matters. It's not acceptable to me. And I'm doing what I can. And I mean, and Sketch, hopefully Fraga will tell you, I'm doing everything I can. Our dollars that we spend researching it does not treat the pain of feeling like you want to die like the pain of cancer at all. We want to make sure that access to care, that it is funded and reimbursed by healthcare insurers, and that it's present in healthcare systems like it's the 10th leading cause of death. We would love your doctor to be screening for it at every primary care visit, because 50% of the people who die by suicide, they don't come see me. 50% see their primary care doctor in the weeks before their death. And we want to improve access to care and primary care. I care very much about those issues. It really is not fair. It is unjust, and you are right.
Wow.
Wow.
That was an answer. And I wanted to throw it out specifically because they're 100% right. Here we are. This happened, and here we are talking about it, right? Not before, but after.
Again, in my defense, I'm talking about every goddamn day and getting it into the media every way that I can. I am very sad that Etika has died, but I am here not because I want to show how smart I am about Etika. I'm here because I know he had hundreds of thousands of fans, and I care about them before they get sick and before they die.
That's actually a great segue to this next comment. Quote, "I'm really affected by this, and I wish it didn't happen. It's way too unfortunate, and my prayers go out to everyone affected by this. And may Etika, a.k.a. Desmond, rest in peace." Focusing on the front of that, I am really affected by this. We've talked a lot about the content creators. What about the audience? What about those left who...
Can I read a letter one of his fans wrote that just really got me?
By all means.
And it's not short, so I'll probably end up skimming some of it. But the reason that I started I understood that he had quite a following. And my son's birthday was yesterday. He had a bunch of friends over the house. They were playing Magic. Once again, table toppers in this house. And I was talking with Gabe, and he was like, "Oh my gosh!" He's like, "I watched him every day for years," and people really care. This is a really long message from a quiet Etika viewer, and this is Joy-Con, our Joy-Con boys, which I know was, which is an Etika sort of centric subreddit. If you can please share this with the our Etika Reddit network. Wow, I don't even know where to begin. I started watching Etika back in the spring of 2016. I was in 9th grade. I mean, think about who you were in 9th grade and people that you spend that much time with. Fast forward 3 years later, and I was not expecting things to turn out like this. I haven't cried yet, but I know I will, because that's what he means to people. Mm-hmm. It's truly a tragic situation on all sides. As a quiet Etika viewer, it means that I haven't donated. I hardly checked his Twitter until 2018, and I did post a few YouTube comments if I wanted to give my 2 cents. But believe me when I say I was there for every stream. And Tati Westbrook, if you're out there, you don't know that for 5 years I watch every video you put out. Like, I get this guy. I know it's makeup, but it's like what I do when I'm not, talking about suicide prevention. I would watch them in class if I could. I would stay up till the crack of dawn if I could. I was there when we played Cahoots. I was there when we went to the deep web. I was there for the Switch reveal. I was there for the Switch press conference. I was even there when the mental breakdowns happened. I never donated, only spoken in chat a handful of times. I had a lot to say. Etika, I am sorry for what happened to you, man. I know it seems fucking weird that I'm talking to a dead man, but I cared about this dude. Dare I say, I loved him. And I believe that. Mm-hmm. During all that bullshit in October and April, May, all I wanted was for you to get help. I never made any stupid clown memes off of you. Unfortunately, it reached a point for me where I could not watch you anymore. I couldn't support a man who is not willing to support himself. That sometimes other people's pain really is overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And that's a totally normal reaction. I'm sorry I couldn't help you out. Maybe things would have been different. Rest in peace. I'll never forget the great memories you gave. To Etika's family, I'm so sorry for your loss. You have an amazing family with a lot of energy and life to give. To Etika's mom. Sorry, I'm a mom. This is my nightmare. I'm so sorry you lost your 2 sons at such young ages, Miss Amofa. I know times are tough right now, but please don't get stuck in the dark, because there will always be brighter days ahead. If you feel alone, don't dwell what you've lost. Instead, bond with the people you have left. May God bless you. Mm-hmm. Talking to his dad, what a great kid. To his younger brother. I mean, these are heartbreaking, and this is just a viewer doesn't know these folks. Talking to all the different people that he viewed and what this meant. And there's a huge list, and I'm not going to go through and read all of it. To all other close friends and associates, highlighters, donators, memers, poketubers, Smash players, please stick together in these dark times and help each other out, okay? After all, it's called the Etika World Network. And this is a person who I think gets it. You dudes truly brought something special to the community. To the haters, now's not the time, all right? Like, this guy's just nailing it. If you do hate Etika, why? There's no point anymore. He's gone. Just leave. Nobody wants you here. To the clown emoji spammers. Like, pointing out, like, this is a real human being you were doing this to. Mm-hmm. He's dead now. Are you happy? Mm-hmm. He's talking about Etika dying to get a click. He was literally killing himself to get clicks from people. And talking about what to do. I mean, and it just goes on. This person even had the grace, and I don't know who this user is. I wish I could just shake this person's hand. Even having props to the NYPD for the way that they responded and did the welfare check, where I don't know that I would have wanted a welfare check to go like that. He understood that they were trying to save them. And this guy is saying, can we still keep each other? Can we still keep our network? Can we still keep close? And like, I've read a lot of reactions, but like, I feel like that one just nailed it. So yeah. I don't know if anyone can ever find this guy. You can't. The internet's too big. But if you ever do, if anyone knows who the guy is who posted as user Silent Etika Viewer one day ago on Reddit, Doc Foreman is there with him, and I just feel like he nailed grief in that post. That's what I wanted to share.
And I think it ties back into that post. We've talked about the haters, we talked about the thick skin, but there's this whole segment of people that were this guy's fans, and were brought together. More importantly, I think the guy hits the nail on the head. They were brought together because of their fandom. And that splintered off and made other friendships and made other communities. Yes, everything interconnecting and interlocking, and now there's a hole in the middle of all of that.
Yeah.
And what do you do? Does the community how does a community recover from that? He asked the question: Can we keep this going? Can you? I mean, there was it often takes a dominant personality to lead a group like that, to keep a group like that together.
Sure.
And in this situation, how do you keep something like that moving forward? And how do the people left behind kind of keep going forward?
Well, you guys are the streamers. You tell me.
Well, I want to jump in to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, April. A lot of people who have the misconceptions of how suicide influences not only just the person, but their entire network. And we'll just use network because we were actually talking about it during our side stream about suicide awareness. And I've talked about it to clients that I had. It does not affect just one person. It affects everybody who's close to that person, and what you just read is a clear example of that. So anyone who's watching this right now who have any kind of doubts saying, if I killed myself right now, nobody would care. That's not true. And please, if you're listening to this right now and you listen to what April said, this is a really clear example of that. Now, as far as where to go from here, Sketch, what you were asking, this is an interesting thing, and it just kind of popped up in my head. In psychology, we talk about the family unit, and I recall in my training, they had something called a kin keeper, and the kin keeper was the person who keeps the family together, who keeps everyone meshed in well together. For example, in my family, it was my grandma. She's the one who brought everybody to her house, had the barbecue, family all got together, socialized, ate, hung out, played dominoes, all that stuff. And then when my grandmother, who was our kin keeper, died, there was nobody there to fill in that gap. And so my family would and splintered. And I see this network, this community of streamers, or this one streamer and his community, he was the kin keeper. They need to find somebody who can try and fill that role, and if they want to continue with this group, with the community presence that they developed. That just kind of popped up in my head.
That is the most brilliant expression of that these networks are like families and that they need kin keepers, and who's going to help the family stay tight. I think that's I had not thought that way, and I'm going to totally steal this. I will totally credit you, but that's a really good idea.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When you look over the whole thing, and this is something that came out in my knowledge, is that the mental health and the mental well-being of social media and how it affects adults, young people, children. We're just starting to understand that from a scientific level. You know what I mean? To really start wrapping our heads around it. Now, we go back. We've all heard and we understand the child star syndrome. I imagine a lot of this is a little bit. You have young people who, let's be honest, 18, 19, 20 years old, that ain't adult. You're still a kid. Your brain still works like a kid. We didn't think it at the time, but I know now. And I could travel in time and tell my younger self that he still wouldn't believe me. But
your brain's not fully myelinated until you're 35.
Yeah. And, if they can't do it. Child actors have a problem, and they have a built-in network. You have parents, you have agents, you have directors, you have set watchdogs, all of this around them, and they still have this problem of dealing with the fame, dealing with the audiences, dealing with all of this coming at them. Imagine having this fame at 19 years old, 80,000 people watching your videos, and no support network around you.
Tremendous pressure.
This just happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm thinking of sadly, in the beauty world, they've been spilling the tea, whatever, about the Jaclyn Hill. Is that her name? The lipstick situation. And I was watching one beauty guru talk about another, and they were sharing text. And she was talking about this like this was a normal conversation for influencers to have. And I remember my brain just clicked. And she's like, make sure you get security. That's right. Here are the kinds of cameras and things that I use. And I was like, oh! And I was like, oh, someone's just like sitting on their bedroom floor filming or sitting in their living room filming. And then suddenly they have 800,000 viewers and there's no one. They just have to think, so then I think, so then I wonder what the New York cops coming to his door, I wonder what that would have been like. Because I was watching that welfare check and not thinking about these content creators who might literally have stalkers and what that means. Like, wowzer. Oh.
So we're coming around to the top of the hour, and I only wanted this to take about an hour or so. But if you guys would give us just a minute or two longer, I wanna put it out there just one last time for anybody who's been here or just joined us or whatever. If you have questions, if you have your own thoughts or whatnot, I know the chat's been running, but now's really the time. Like, I would love to see what the chat has to say, if anything, at this point. If you have any of your own questions or own concerns about this topic, and this is, an hour is not nearly a long enough time probably to talk about this. We could probably do a different focus of this.
I got a minute. If there's a question, this is a topic that I'm very passionate about educating people on. So if you have a question, bring it.
Absolutely.
And now we just got to vamp while everybody types, and we make up for the delay. Michelle there, I wish I'd come earlier.
Hey, Doc.
Yeah, thank you. And everybody who's here, thank you for coming. Thank you, Perky, for putting out the information for the Suicide Prevention Hotline, Lifeline, and the Stack Up Discord. How do you deal with pride in a patient?
Well, I mean, the good news is that everybody has an ego when it works, right? It's like a defense mechanism. And so what you want is for people to have healthy egos, a healthy sense of self, and to protect themselves. And pride is a way that people sort of protect themselves. They think of themselves as strong or as capable. Additionally, sometimes it's about keeping the image of appearing strong and capable. I will tell you now, full disclosure, I'm a lady. Also,
what?
I know. I am a heterosexual lady who loves men and who loves for men to be masculine. And there is no universe where I would love, like, my male clients who, like, depending on what they feel, what masculinity means to them, I don't need for them to come to me crying and being helpless all the time. I understand that there's an important part of masculinity that is about what's called instrumentality, and sometimes mistaken for pride. The sense of I can do things on my own, fix things on my own, take care of myself. I am tough and I can handle it. And that is I have that attitude. I like being pretty independent, and I think it's a great, healthy thing. So what I would always say is what you want is pride in its place, right? So remember when I mentioned, like, DIY projects often talk with men. All my people are farmers and mechanics, all of them, since cars were invented. So I talk about cars a lot. You want to know the kinds of stuff that you can, the kind of job that you can fix in your garage at home, and the kind that requires a specialty technician, like my brother, the Lamborghini mechanic, right? And so what you would say is be very proud of what you can do. Be very self-sufficient. Help yourself. And it'll be my job as a therapist to help you tell the difference between when this is a DIY project and when you bring in an expert to assist. And help them sort of contextualize that it's not because you're weak or incompetent or not capable, but the problem is in fact just a specialty problem, and we'll do this together. And I feel like you support that good ego and you support that. Now, narcissism is a different item, and that's a different question. Does that help?
I think that was a pretty good answer. I'm looking through a couple of questions there.
Yeah, TC had a couple.
A lady?
Yeah, I'm looking back through. I'm not seeing a question. I saw a couple of statements, but yeah, if you have a question, put it out there. We'll hang out here for just another minute or two. Thank you so much, there, Renegade, for that one about the pride of the patient. I don't know. I like that idea of the healthy ego. A little bit of good, healthy pride.
Yeah, like healthy people have some, and that's great. You don't want to undermine that. You just want to say, how do we put that in balance with good? Like, how do you know the difference? Like, and the best, proudest, toughest dudes that I know also absolutely look at that and go, that's a job for an expert.
It's funny because we in my family we talk about the Hispanic side of the family, we talk about machismo. They always talk about you gotta be cool, you gotta be suave, and you cannot express anything other than maybe being pissed off or something like that, and you should not show any kind of
Fair.
vulnerability or emotion. And it's like, oh my gosh! And then here Moto's bringing in here about the military, about being
Yes.
being so put together and having this thick shell of armor where you
Hold
cannot
your
show
bearing.
your weakness. Hold your bearing. Be
Hold your
strong. Be
bearing.
steadfast. And it's just like, yeah, that can help in war, but that doesn't help very well when it comes to relationships.
Right. Like if you have a wrench, you don't use it as a hammer. It's a really good tool. And
Mm-hmm.
in its place, it's very effective and it wins wars. And I don't want to get rid of your ability to do that. I just want to give you some extra tools so that you can just be really effective and know when it's hold your bearing time and when it's a different time, and and help you make some good judgment calls for your health.
Mm-hmm.
And I loves me some many Latin men. Did I mention I was lady? But also one of the things that I love about Latin men is they also are very sentimental, very loving, healthy machismo, which is toughness, not to point of self-destruction, toughness to care for others,
Mm-hmm.
toughness to protect. Like there's like, so then you say, well, what's the healthy version of this, and what's the part that's not getting you what you want or what your family needs? And that's like, you just sort of, you balance it, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, it's all about the balance.
All right, well, folks, it's 5 after 9 now. We've held on for as long as I think I'm going to keep the doc here for. Thank you so much, April, for coming on and chatting with us. Matt, thank you for being here as well.
Most
Everybody who
welcome.
came out to watch. I know you guys are planning on touching a little bit on this with the Psi stream. I believe that's
Yes.
the 3rd of July. Is that right?
Yep, the next one is going to be on the 7th.
The
We'll
7th.
be here
All
here
right.
on Stack Up, and we'll be talking about everything. We'll be covering a lot of stuff about this.
And folks, if you want
Please join us.
to learn a lot more about the subject, make sure to head on over to the American Association of Suicidology. There is a wealth of knowledge on that website that can really inform you. And thanks, folks. Bye.
Thank you for having me.
Have a
Take
good
care.
one.